So I just had the chance to watch the brief teaser trailer for the new Netflix series coming out, Lost in Space. And I'm cautiously optimistic about it. I think going into it, I kind of liked what I saw, but I'm also a little bit afraid that it's going to end up being a missed opportunity. Just the look from this tiny teaser, and I haven't really looked into any behind the scenes information behind it, and we only have this teaser, so it's not a lot to go off of, but just from this little bit, it looks like they might be going for a little more of a modern, edgy sci-fi vibe to it. That's just a feeling I'm getting from this, and that is not inherently bad. That can be fantastic, and that's kind of why I'm still really interested at this point in seeing this, because I'm hoping it turns out really good. As far as the missed opportunity, what I mean by that is that aesthetic is so prevalent in science fiction series right now that I feel like it has the possibility of just kind of getting lost in the mix if it doesn't turn out to be something truly spectacular. If it's just pretty good, I can see it getting kind of just lost in the mix of all the other series that are out there right now, and that can be sort of its Achilles heel there. I think where they should have gone, just from what I'm seeing from the teaser, is that I think that to stand out, they should have gone for a much more vibrant and colorful, somewhat retro aesthetic, and I think that in the Lost in Space universe and taking a little bit more of an homage from the original 60s series than from visually looks almost more like the 90s movie, I think taking that route would have made it stand out so much more and stand more of a chance, I think, at being something a little bit different, something that it stands out and is a little more successful. And again, just a teaser so far, but just that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting, that it has the potential to be just kind of lost in the mix. And I was hoping when I first heard about this that it was going to be, again, a very vibrant and colorful and kind of interesting sort of retro vibe to it that would really bring about something different and something that's missing in most sci-fi these days. This element of hope, this element of real genuine just curiosity and exploration that's not missing in every sci-fi series now, but I think in the overall sci-fi landscape that is something that's not quite as prevalent as I would hope it would be. And I think that using the Lost in Space franchise, I think that's kind of a missed opportunity to not really go that route and instead make it feel more like one of the pack, one of the style of a lot of science fiction and even fantasy series right now, which the fantasy series are all trying to be Game of Thrones clones now, the stuff that's up and coming. And I think it's a missed opportunity of taking its own original route and doing something fun instead of being something that's just kind of par for the course, one of the pack, and I feel like that's the route it's going. And the other thing I wanted to mention, in mentioning the original 60 series, it was bizarre to me. Just the teaser, I looked at the first handful of comments just to see what other people were thinking, what their thoughts were, and if other people were as interested as I was in seeing this series. Because again, just that fear that it didn't take quite the correct route, I still am excited to see it, and I'm very, very curious to see and hope that it's going to be good. I am blown away by the number of people. It seemed like the majority of people didn't realize that there was something Lost in Space before the 90s movie. Everyone was talking about, Matt LeBlanc's out in this, and just making jokes about the 90s movie, and there were a few general discussions I even saw where people were like, what do you mean there was a Lost in Space before the 90s movie? And it's unbelievably mind-blowing to me, because it's Lost in Space. I mean, there are things every decade, there are books, movies, TV series, where if you weren't there of the time, if you weren't there at the time it came out, it makes sense that you wouldn't know what it was. There are many things that are just kind of, they come out and it's something so of that era, and it doesn't really penetrate into the cultural consciousness, and it's not something that is remembered decades afterwards. There's countless numbers of things like that makes total sense that someone wouldn't know. But Lost in Space definitely is not in that category. It's definitely something that has become enough of the public consciousness that it should be just such a common pop culture thing to even just realize, even if you've never seen an episode, to realize that there was a 1960s series and have at least just be able to see an image of the cast or something and realize that's what it's from, that type of thing. It's just bizarre to me how many people don't realize that there was a series before them. I can't get into this mentality that seems to be very prevalent, because I think it's a dangerous mentality when you get beyond something as far as a simple TV series. So many people, you'll mention something and you'll talk to them and they'll say, well, of course I didn't know about that. That came out before I was born. How does that have any meaning? Like, how do you not grow up seeing and reading things from before you were born? How do you not see, like, it's weird to me to not have a cultural knowledge of things that are only, 10, 20, 30 years before you were born. That's not a long span of time, and that's something that you should have some awareness of, and where things came from, and how things evolved. It's just very bizarre to me, this lack of knowledge of things that came before, and this idea that, if this thing is more than a few years old, it's automatically just not worth my time. I find that incomprehensible. But that's just something that really was bizarre and unexpected to me when I was looking at the comments. But I'd love to hear what you think of this series, or if you have a little more information about it, you've looked more into it, I'd love to hear your take on what you've heard from the behind the scenes. Again, from this little teaser, I to an extent, I liked what I saw enough to where I'm very curious and can't wait for a real trailer, and I'll definitely check out the first episode at least. And I'm hopeful because I do like Lost in Space, the original series, and I do like the 90s movie, even though it's really not that great of a movie. Came out when I was a kid, and it was an interesting, just kind of fun enough sci-fi movie that it really worked and hit me at the right age. So I still really like it, even though it's not that great. But I do have a lot of hope that this will be good then, and even though it's not quite what I was hoping it was going to be, I'm still hopeful that it's going to be a fun and exciting series.